Below the Bar podcast is not meant to be taken as legal advice. It is purely used for entertainment purposes. Corbin and I are not attorneys. In fact, we haven't even graduated law school yet.
We don't even know if we're going to graduate.
We don't even know if we're going to graduate. That's scary. So if you have any legal concerns, please, I urge you guys to seek an actual attorney. With that being said, I hope you enjoy this episode, and that's all I have to say. Hey Corbin, I'm gonna have to place you under arrest here now.
You're gonna arrest me for what?
We'll talk about that later. But right now, just get against the wall.
No, you can't do that. I have rights.
What rights? You don't have rights.
I have a lot of rights.
I don't think.
And you have to tell me exactly what my rights are.
I've never heard of that in my life.
You have to.
You know what? I'm just gonna arrest you now, and hopefully that stands up in court, and we'll see what happens. We'll take it from there.
No, listen.
Yeah.
Miranda v. Arizona says that I have rights and you have to tell me what these rights are.
Well, I've never heard of that, so why don't we do some digging into Miranda v. Arizona and see what rights you have?
Yeah, we can dig through, but I'm just saying you're going to have to let me go at the end of this.
We'll find out. Okay, that's to be determined. Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome to Below the Bar podcast. Again, my name is Drew. With me, as always, is Corbin.
How's it going?
And today, you heard it, we're talking about Miranda v. Arizona. This is a fantastic case, and everybody knows about Miranda Rights, and we're just going to tell you where it came from with a little twist at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we follow up on Miranda's life after.
Yeah, and he had a crazy life after.
He did,
yeah.
But we'll get into that after everything.
Yeah, of course. So I guess we should probably start just by telling people that Miranda v. Arizona is the case that created the Miranda rights that we all know. The right to remain silent, right to an attorney.
Right, yeah. I mean, whenever you get arrested, there's a list of everything that a police officer has to read to you before they can interrogate you, basically.
Yeah, and we see it on TV all the time. We see it in movies. I mean, it's no secret that these Miranda rights exist. So I guess we'll start off by just kind of going through the basic principles that this case is going to be dealing with, such as the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah, the Fifth Amendment is a really important part of this case. Yeah, so the Fifth Amendment it's a really important part of this case. The Fifth Amendment protects your rights to basically not be a witness against yourself. Pleading the Fifth is basically saying that you're not going to speak on anything because you don't want to incriminate yourself in any way. Another part of the Fifth Amendment is that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. That's another big part of the Fifth Amendment, which comes into play during this case.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very key. And just basically prior to any interrogation, the police must inform suspects of these rights, including the right against self-incrimination and right to counsel.
Right.
So we'll dig into the facts of Miranda v. Arizona here. So this guy, Ernesto Miranda, he was a lifetime criminal for a variety of different things.
It seemed like he generally did not have a great relationship with police officers or authority of
the law
any
in general.
Yeah. So in March of 1963, Miranda was arrested in his home regarding the kidnapping and rape of a woman from Arizona. He was taken into an interrogation room where there was a 2 or 3 hour long interrogation where basically they just continued to berate him with questions until he confessed, until he signed a confession stating that he committed these crimes.
Yeah. I think I also saw somewhere too that he had mental issues or a really low IQ or something.
I remember reading something about that as well, and that seemed to be a similar part. In going through this case, we're going to talk about a couple different cases, which were Venera, Westover, and Stewart, and they were all kind of the same thing, where they were arrested, not read their rights, and then they were all pretty unintellectual, it seems, and they were just held in an interrogation until they were basically convinced to confess to these crimes.
Yeah.
Whether they did them or not, I believe, is still kind of up in the air. I don't know.
Yeah, and honestly, even whether or not they did them, I think that's irrelevant. I mean,
Right.
You have these rights for a reason, and we need to make sure that procedure is being followed, and if not, then we need to do something about that. But yeah, so you're exactly right. He was taken in this room. He had a 2 or 3 hour interrogation, and I've never been interrogated by police, but I could imagine that would be not fun.
I mean, even getting pulled over. Like, imagine getting pulled over, or think about the last time you're not even doing anything wrong. You sped, you did something. It's still nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
You could be perfectly innocent, and it's still nerve-wracking.
Like,
so
why are you nervous? And you're like,
because I don't know. I just am.
10 and 2.
Right. But yeah, so you can just imagine what these guys were going through these interrogations.
Because when you're stopped for a taillight, it's nerve-wracking. Could you imagine being interrogated about kidnapping and rape?
Yeah, it'd be terrifying.
That would be horrifying. Yeah. So he confesses. He signs this written confession, and he's ultimately convicted of kidnapping and rape and sentenced to 20 to 30 years in prison, in large part due to this confession that he signs.
Right. Yeah. So then he ends up going to a trial based on the fact that he was never given these rights. Like, he was never read these rights by the police officers, and throughout the interrogation, he had no idea, basically, that he was allowed an attorney, he was allowed counsel, he was allowed to not respond. He ends up taking this to court, and at the lower court, he loses. They basically say he waived his rights. At the next court up, the trial court, he loses again. And then I believe even at the Supreme Court of Arizona, he ended up losing as well.
Yeah.
But this case goes the whole way to the United States Supreme Court, where they end up reversing the ruling and basically saying that because the police officers didn't read these rights, they broke his Fifth Amendment rights, and the ruling was reversed, and he was basically set free.
Yeah, he walked. He walked. Whether or not he did this, he walked because procedure wasn't followed. Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to me to think that, that many levels of appeal, they were like, you don't have to inform people of their rights. Right. You can just pull them in. Yeah, they should just know. This guy with an IQ of 80 or whatever, I don't know.
Right.
And he, like I said, I can't remember if it was a low IQ or if he had a mental disorder or something. Yeah, but he, that's crazy to think that somebody would just know that, especially before,
before they were a thing.
Right? Yeah.
Like, they've always been a thing, but before it was the rule that they had to be read because people don't know about them.
Yeah.
All these courts were just like, nah, you should know.
Right. And they also said, I can't remember what level you said of appeal, but one of them had said that he had waived his rights. But at no point, a waiver has to be intelligently and knowingly made. And I think that's exactly what the Supreme Court said, too, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is they said any waiver of these rights could not have been knowingly and intelligently made. So that's an invalid argument.
Right. Yeah, and I know the court here says that any waiver of these rights must be voluntary. And basically they said that if a person refuses to be questioned, you have to stop until they have counsel or anything like that. And that they can't waive these rights unless they know that they are there.
Yeah.
Which is why they have to be read, is one of the reasonings in this case that the Supreme Court holds.
Yeah. So I guess the next question would be, do these Miranda rights apply? When do they have to read them? And I think you kind of touched on this earlier. And it's not on arrest, because people think, oh, when you're arrested, they have to read these rights. It's before an interrogation.
Yeah, it's before a custodial interrogation.
Yeah, so I guess that's right, yeah, custodial interrogation. So I guess there's two terms that we should probably define here. Custody, what is custody, and what is interrogation? And I know everybody's like, I know what those are, but the law is finicky, and it's never what you think it is.
Right.
Okay, or maybe it is. I don't know. But custody is, this is just a flowery way of saying you're under the control of someone. But it says, custody is formal arrest or when a person is restrained to the degree associated with formal arrest. So,
yeah, and that basically means that if you're a reasonable person and you don't feel like you're free to leave, that would be that you have been basically put into a custodial arrest.
Yeah, you're under the control of the police. They're controlling your liberty. You can't, whatever. I mean, we're making up our own definitions here, but they're all, I mean, it's kind of illustrating what custody is. Interrogation is just any line of questioning where police reasonably know that their words or conduct are likely to elicit an incriminating response.
Right. So that kind of goes along. It's not only questioning, but also if you're in the back of a police car and you're under arrest for something and you say you want counsel and they stop questioning you, but then they say, listen, if you just tell us what you did, it's going to go a lot better for you. Even something like that, like they can't try to persuade you into telling what you did or didn't do.
Right. Yeah. After there's an express request for an attorney by a suspect, all questioning has to just cease right then and there until an attorney's present.
Right.
That has to be an express. You can't just say like, "Hey, do you guys know an attorney?" Or
right. You have to be like, "I want an attorney,"
or just shut the attorney. Like you can't just do that.
Right.
Be like, yeah. So you have to say, "I want an attorney."
Right.
Yeah. So that's basically what happened in Miranda. Is he got convicted of these heinous crimes, and he was not read his rights, so he appealed on that ground, and his conviction was reversed, and he walked free. Now we're talking about that twist to the case, and this is really wild, I think.
Yeah, because you know how like with some of the other episodes we've done, we do like a little bit of research into, well, what's the rule in Pennsylvania because that's where we're at. But we also like to kind of follow up and see if the parties in the case, kind of what happened to their life afterwards. And Miranda's life after he was set free was pretty crazy. And you guys probably won't believe it, but Drew did some research, and I'll let him explain what happened.
You won't believe it. I did research, guys. So yeah, Miranda actually for years afterwards, police oftentimes would carry this little card with them that had the Miranda rights on them. So whenever they would have to read the rights, they would pull out this little placard and they would read the rights. And they might still do that to this day. I don't know.
I have no clue.
It might be a thing. I don't know. But at that point in time, they did. So Miranda made this living. He would go, and autograph these cards for like $2.
This is my thing.
That's a hustle, man.
Oh.
That's a hustle. So Miranda, he actually went on. He lived a crazy life post walking free. What do you think he did? Just like if you didn't know anything about this.
I mean, if I didn't know anything about it, I would assume that like most people in cases, I feel like they kind of just go back to their life as normally as they can.
Yeah.
But I feel like they generally, like, it's just kind of like a normal life. Like,
yeah. Dude, this guy, Miranda, he became a world-renowned athlete. He was part of the U.S. hockey team that defeated the Soviets in the 1980 Winter Olympics.
No way.
Yeah.
No.
Actually, guys, he got stabbed in the chest in a bar fight over a card game in some dive bar, and he bled out on the floor. That's what happened to Ernesto Miranda. So here's where it gets crazy, because you're thinking, like, that's not much of a twist. Dude was a lifelong criminal. He went into a bar. He got in a bar fight, and it ended up bad for him. That's not too much of a twist.
Right.
Here's the twist. So this is in 1976, roughly 10 years, I think it was 76, roughly 10 years after
the case,
and he ended up walking free. So this guy stabs him and runs away. His killer, whose name was Fernando Rodriguez, by the way, gets tackled, okay?
Right.
And then he gets arrested. And the police read Mr. Rodriguez his Miranda rights that were established by the man he just killed, okay?
Okay.
And he exercises those rights and remains silent and doesn't say anything. And because of his exercise of the Miranda rights, he ended up walking. He did not get convicted of killing Ernesto Miranda. He ended up walking, and I read that he went to Mexico and just disappeared.
And that's just where he's at.
Presumably he's with Tupac somewhere on a beach. But
that's crazy. I mean,
yeah.
And can you imagine? So you're stabbed to death. And you're like, all right, well, they're going to get the guy. It's no big deal.
He's probably laying on the ground, Miranda, and this is grim, but he's probably laying there going like, I'm not worried. Because
they're going to get him.
The Miranda Rights. They'll read that to him, and procedure will be followed, and they'll get him. But
because of Miranda Rights.
Yeah, he walked.
No justice for Miranda. Well, kind of justice in the beginning and then not towards the end.
Yeah. One quick thing that I want to just touch real quick is a little earlier in the episode you had mentioned the 4 other cases.
Yeah.
That just real quick, what ended up happening with those?
So with all of them except for one. So with the Venera and Westover, they both ended up going. They went through their state. I don't know which states they were in, except for Stewart. But Venera and Westover, they both kind of went through the same steps as Miranda. They went to court, then they went to trial court, and then they went to their state Supreme Court, all in which they lost. And then whenever Miranda went to the Supreme Court, their cases ended up getting overturned. But Stewart was in California, and so he went to court, lost, trial court, lost. He went to the California Supreme Court, and that's where they reversed it. So after Miranda happened, they reversed the first 2, the Venera and Westover, and then they affirmed the California Supreme Court, stating that Stewart won, and I believe they all walked free as well.
So that seems like it was almost common practice, which is kind of scary to think that, at some, and this is probably not surprising to think about, decades and decades ago, how things could have been, but, that police could just arrest you and not inform you of any rights.
And they all were also had to go through hour-long interrogations where they all confessed to their crimes.
Yeah.
So it seems like that was a pretty common thing where you got arrested and you were just interrogated until you said you did whatever they said you did.
Yeah, especially with the high rate. If you look, I don't have a number, but if you look at the at the rate of people that confess even to crimes that they did not commit, just because they're worn down or they just want this to be over or they're scared or whatever it may be.
Yep.
So that's crazy. But that's all we got from Miranda today. You have anything else you want to?
No, not really. I'm just going to do my same old spiel where I say if you guys have any ideas, let us know. Follow us on our Instagram. We have all of our YouTube videos are out now, so follow us, subscribe to us on there. Yeah, if you guys have anything that you want us to do, just let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to do it, guys. And as always, thank you for listening to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Tune in next week, and we'll see you then.